evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to join us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. Head of State Mr. Paul Biya has been announced for the economic capital Douala tomorrow for the laying of the foundation stone of the second bridge over the Vori River. In this edition of the primetime newscast on ATV, we take a look at the 60-year-old bridge which has for over the years been diminishing in its structure, and also would the second bridge be coming as a solution to the circulation difficulties over the Vori River. A team of reporters will be telling us more on that in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on ATV. Plus, 6 students sentenced to 3 years imprisonment each by the Buea Court of First Instance. Those are students of the University of Buea. The verdict was handed down today. It is no longer speculations. The President of the Republic of Cameroon has been announced for the economic capital Douala tomorrow, that is Thursday. The presidential convoy would arrive the economic capital Douala precisely at the international airport at exactly 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. The president would lay the foundation stone for the construction of the second bridge over the Vori River. That is going to be at exactly 1 p.m. tomorrow. And on Friday, still this week, on November 15th, President Paul Biya would also lay the foundation stone for the construction of the central gas plant in Lokbaba in the Douala Free municipality. We shall be telling you more on that in our subsequent newscasts. And preparations intensify in the country's economic capital Douala ahead of the head of state's visit that is going to be tomorrow. Mr. Biya is coming, as we earlier indicated, to lay the foundation stone of the second bridge over the Vori River. The present bridge, which has been existing for 60 years, as we announced in the headlines, is diminishing in structure and unable to resist the thousands of vehicles plying it on daily basis. For Hansen Chanji now takes a look at the day-to-day ordeals of commuters of the Vori Bridge.
Created by the French in the 1950s, during the colonial period, the lone bridge built across River Wuri, found at the confluence of River Nkam and Makumbi, 32 kilometers northeast of the city of Yabasi, connects Bonaberi to other major towns in Douala. With a distance of over 1 kilometer, the bridge is one of the longest in West Africa. At least 40 to 50,000 vehicles ply the road daily to their various destinations. The bridge over River Wuri is the longest in Cameroon and in recent times has been subjected to frequent traffic circulation. As the population of Douala increases, coupled with daily economic activities, traffic congestion has been the order of the day, as heavy volumes of cars, cargo trucks, and even bikes ply the road. This, at times, slow economic activities, because it is the lone bridge that links industrial parts of the city of Bonaberi to other major towns in Douala. The Bonaberi Bridge, as it is called, links the southwest, the northwest, and the west regions. Its importance cannot be underestimated.
The Vori Bridge is very strategic. It connects the southwest, the west, the littoral itself, and even part of the central province, because if the road in Yaoundé is blocked, there's still people will have to come to Douala through the Vori Bridge. They'll have to go through Bangante and come to Douala. So it is a connecting point that gets to Douala. I know traffic from Bamenda, Bafoussam, Buea all come towards, passes through the bridge to come to Douala. And it is the main source of supply of food items to Douala. So it is a very, very strategic point.
As a main bridge that interconnects regions and towns clocks 60 years after its creation and poor maintenance, the Bonaberi Bridge will soon have a sister. This to facilitate access to the beautiful picturesque banks of the river that leads one to the Douala port, a seaport with a heavy traffic of maritime transport activities, catering for the landlocked Central African state.
And the second bridge over the Vuri River is going to be coming as a solution to the frequent tight traffic situation faced by commuters on daily basis. The close to 120 billion francs CFA project is expected to last for 3 years. Jacques Ekwe-Kinge tells us more in the following report.
The economic capital of Cameroon, Douala, will soon have a second bridge over the Vuri River. The issue of a second bridge is coming more than 50 years after the first bridge was inaugurated in 1954. More than 4 decades after its construction, the bridge has been having all forms of breakdowns, ranging from bad roads to broken barricades. The second bridge on the Vuri will certainly have very different characteristics from the first. For example, the new bridge will have 5 lanes and 2 railways, including a special lane reserved for vehicles which suffer breakdown. The 850-meter bridge, which will be constructed some meters from the first, has been estimated to cost some 120 billion francs CFA. The project, it should be noted, is being funded thanks to a partnership with the French government. The construction of a second bridge over the Vuri River will be carried out by a French company which has estimated the work to last some 3 years. The second bridge had been announced since 2011, but 2 years after, no concrete measure was taken, and at one point the project was referred to as one of government's white elephant projects. Safety experts have, however, recommended the putting of an emergency plan to redress the problem of traffic congestion before the completion of the project. The second bridge over the Vuri, if realized, will come to ameliorate the ordeal faced by the population of the economic capital.
The second bridge over the Vuri River, the laying of the foundation stone expected tomorrow with the coming of Head of State Paul Biya, which has been officially announced for the economic capital Douala tomorrow. Now, potable water has been absent at the New Town Aripo neighborhood, still here in the economic capital Douala for years, with inhabitants resorting to water of doubtful quality, and the population has expressed their wish that the problem is going to be redressed with the coming of Head of State Paul Biya. Let's have the details of that report with Hansen Chanji.
Many persons have gone for years in the city of Douala without access to potable water. The people of Sokmaho around the Douala International Airport, just like other towns in Douala, have spent days, months and even years chasing good drinkable water, but to no avail. Due to the absence of potable water in these areas, they are obliged to drink water from questionable sources, which poses a great health problem. Some of the locals fetch water from boreholes created to solve the water problems. Some use rainwater whenever it pours, and others use water from the well.
The problem is that all the time we used to buy water. We are buying water by week. We don't have free taps here. We just used to buy the water. When there's no light, we don't have water. When there's light, before we have water. So when there's no light, we use by well. I'll go and carry well water. When I boil it, I'll remove it when it's cold before I start cooking.
Most, if not all, trek for long distances just to fetch water. They have no choice. Local inhabitants explain that since they arrived in Sokmaho, they have never seen potable water. They have a message for President Paul Biya as he prepares to visit Douala. They are calling on the attention of the head of state to look into their problems of lack of potable water.
Still here in the country's economic capital, Douala, the collapse of a wall of a story building at Besenge, Akwa. Douala leaves residents in total fear and insecurity. No human life, fortunately enough, was endangered. And before tells us more in the following report.
The rapid urbanization of Douala leaves respect for zoning of commercial and residential areas aside, as investors with capital, eager for both development and revenue, build structures without properly reviewing the possible hazards of the location of buildings they embark on erecting. This is what led to chunks of cement falling and bursting holes in the zinc roofs of residents' homes behind a 7-story building currently being completed in the Besenge quarter of Douala. A young female tenant of a damaged home explained she was in the house while heavy rains were pouring when she heard the loud sound of heavy debris falling on the roof of the house. Frightened as she was with her sister's infant child, she went to the neighbor's house for safety. Several other tenants in the compound behind the story building recounted similar stories, noting some appliances in their homes had been destroyed by rain, ranging from computers to TVs. One senior female tenant raised her concerns over whether the owner of the story building would compensate them for the damages they had incurred. The proprietor of the structure was unfortunately unavailable for comment, while the tenants maintained they were awaiting their own landlord to make reparations to the damaged ceilings and roofs. The accident mirrors other situations in the Douala municipality, which warrant greater scrutiny among city council officials when granting building permits for construction of story buildings for commercial purposes where residents may be living. The tenants behind the building, while construction advances with the rainy season continuing, leaves a situation where the moistened cement remains a hazard that can possibly lead to loss of life in the event of more serious downpour.
The case between some students of the University of Buea and the government is not over yet, as some 6 out of the 12 UB students who appeared in court today have been sentenced to 3 years in prison or have to pay the fine of 1 million francs CFA each. The remaining 6 students were acquitted and simply discharged. Those convicted were found guilty of 7 count charges. That is taking the Vice Chancellor of the University of Buea hostage for 5 hours during the February 21st strike action on the campus of the University of Buea, disrupting lectures on campus of the said institution and for also assaulting security guards on duty, just to name a few. Those sentenced are presently at the Buea Central Prison, and the lead defense counsel in reaction said they were yet to decide whether to launch an appeal against the verdict. We shall be having updates on that in our subsequent newscast. Birth certificates are supposed to be issued free of charge. That is what the law in the country stipulates, but is that the reality in civil registry services? Some Douala residents criticized the fact that they are obliged to pay money just to obtain the document. Jacques Eke Kinge investigated on the subject.
The birth certificate is the first official document that gives a legal status to any citizen born in a particular country. In Cameroon, the establishment of this document has been fixed by law and is actually free of charge if certain conditions are fulfilled after the birth of a newborn.
You need a birth declaration from the hospital within a duration of 2 weeks, and it will also take 2 weeks for the birth certificate to be issued.
But is the establishment of a birth certificate actually free of charge, as it is claimed by the civil registry authorities?
The issuing of a birth certificate is virtually free, but we usually collect a token fee of 2,000 francs CFA for the purchase of office materials.
Meanwhile, at the Douala 1 Council Annex in Daido, the Secretary of the Civil Status Register, the 1981 law has facilitated the obtention of a birth certificate, no matter the condition under which a child is born. It doesn't matter whether the parents are legally married or not. This service, therefore, is free, provided the birth declaration provided is within the time limit.
It is free of charge, of course, and the question is whether it is actually a reality on the ground. And in the central region of Cameroon, the second phase of the French Debt Relief Development Contract, better known by its French acronym as the CDD in the agri sector, has been launched. The financial assistance has witnessed a drop from 125 billion francs CFA during the past 5 years to 82 billion in the preceding 5 years. No justification has so far been given for the drastic drop, and 82 billion would be invested into free projects that is going to seek to boost the agri production in the country and also fight against poverty and also promote economic growth in the country. And in the following interview, the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Simi Menye, further expatiated on the second phase of the CEDEDU project.
We are looking to see how we can jumpstart activities to fund the pillars of this second generation agriculture, including training young people, helping farmers in the countryside to develop some activities, and also helping administration to operate better, because as you know, over the last 20 years, there has been no investment in many of our services. So we get some resources from this cooperation with the French, and then some of our services will be receiving some support, including in statistics.
That is the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development there, speaking to Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Akong. In news out of our national boundaries, a desperate mob in the Philippines near the city of Tacloban ramshacked a rice warehouse on Wednesday. That was today. The stampede left 8 people dead as survivors of the recent typhoon clamored for sustenance. Let's have the details of that report with Franz Venkat.
Belgian aid workers arrive with emergency assistance, including water purification systems, to distribute in areas of the Philippines struck by Typhoon Haiyan.
We're really in a hurry to get as quick as possible to Tacloban in order to set up our advanced medical post and our water purification station, which then will bring some relief to the affected population.
The Belgians are among an international relief effort to reach remote areas. The typhoon has destroyed vital infrastructure, making it difficult for survivors to access urgent medical assistance, food and water. U.S. troops will install equipment at the badly damaged Tacloban airport to expand its capacity and help it cope with more deliveries of emergency relief.
We've got expeditionary runway sets to allow airplanes to land at night, and then we have light sets that are going up today, so we can start doing 24-hour operations starting today.
An Australian medical team loads up supplies before heading off for the Philippines. They will help treat the injured in a mobile field hospital to be set up in Tacloban. Japan, too, has dispatched a 50-member emergency task force, including 5 doctors. Emergency relief is also being dispatched by Canada, Norway and Britain.
Still in news out of our national boundaries, French Justice Minister was subjected to racist slangs for the 3rd time in a month when a magazine compared her to a monkey. And of course, it should be noted that such slangs are not new to the French politician. Let's have the details once again with Franz Venkat.
Crafty as a monkey, Tabira finds the banana. The latest racial slur to hit France's Justice Minister has prompted the government to take the matter to court.
Prime Minister Ayrault has decided these facts may constitute the offence of public racial insult and has reported them to the Paris prosecutor.
Several politicians took to Twitter to vent their outrage, some going so far as to say all copies of the magazine should be seized by police.
This front page is hateful and unacceptable. We simply cannot tolerate it. Of course, the Minute magazine must be investigated. What the government is looking at now is to have it recalled so it's not displayed on newspaper stands across the country.
The minister responsible for introducing same-sex marriage legislation, Tabira, has become a hate figure for some. Earlier this year, a National Front electoral candidate was expelled from the far-right party after posting a Facebook comment saying she would rather see the minister swinging from the branches than in government. And last month, a group of school children attending an anti-gay marriage demonstration were filmed chanting, "Monkey, eat your banana." Tabira's treatment has sparked much soul-searching as to whether racism has become widely acceptable in parts of French society.
In this rising climate of hate, impressionable people could be moved to act on their feelings and take the life of a French person. And this isn't France. This isn't the Republic.
Tabira says while she hasn't been personally offended by the attacks, they lack imagination and set a bad example.
And that does it for this segment of the news. Up next, we talk about the program budget for the year 2014, which is under deliberations at the ongoing National Assembly. As we announced earlier, we thank you so much, viewers, for joining us tonight on Talking Point, the November session to examine and then adopt the state budget for the year 2014 in the country is underway at the National Assembly as members of parliament have, where members of parliament have so far been meeting. Parliamentarians have been discussing on what could have caused the delay in the execution of the last year's program budget, which was just at the phase of its experimentation. Our guest tonight is a financial expert or an economic expert. We thank you so much, Mr. Richard Martin Tondo, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Thank you for inviting me.
Like I earlier said, parliamentarians are blaming the slow rate of the execution of the program budget in the year 2013. We remember that it was just launched 1 year ago. Should we say that it failed woefully? Because in the level of the economic capital dollar, we are talking just about a 12% execution rate so far. Should we say that it failed because it was just at the phase of experimentation?
We could foresee that failure, and I think we told our televiewers a year ago that there were all signs of no success for that budgeting system, because it is a performance-based budgeting system that is called a budget program or program, for at least 3 reasons. The first reason is the lack of good governance will, because this is the law relating to the fiscal regime of the state was passed on December 26th, 2007, but it was only implemented in 2012. It took 5 years to implement that fiscal regime. It is within the fiscal regime that you find the budget program. And not only that, during the 5 years, they did not train the civil servants, and more especially those in charge of financial affairs. And we saw it. It is after the vote was passed at the National Assembly, 3 or 4 months later, that they started training the various staff in the Ministry of Finance and other departments. So that's the first reason. Of course, there's also a lot of bureaucracy that is fueling in corruption. And civil servants are dragging their feet to execute instructions. The second reason is opacity, because the budget, the performance-oriented budgeting system was meant to be appropriated by the taxpayers. So there should have been information, and not only data. There should also be analysis of the information. But so far, there's no software within the various general affairs department in various ministries that can take account and take stock and analyze the performances of the budget.
Now you're talking about 5 years that the result-oriented budget approach was introduced, yes. Was launched rather, yes. And it was introduced 5 years after.
5 years after,
no,
because of the lack of...
No groundwork was done, no preparation. Not at all. The staff were not prepared. So how can we interpret this laxity on the part of the government?
I'm not talking about laxity. We can say there's no will at all. Because if it is properly applied, there will be a lot of transparency. And obviously, the way the state finances are being managed, we do not oversee any intention of good governance.
Now you're talking about if it is properly implemented. How should it be properly implemented?
First of all, people have to be trained, because it's a tool. They cannot hand a vehicle to any person. They will hand a vehicle to somebody who went to a driving school. And now people have tools. You quoted at the beginning the instance of the littoral region, where only 12%
have admitted that they have attained or they have executed just 12%
because
of the country's
most
program
of
budget.
the civil servants in charge of following up the investment budget, mainly the investment budget, are not trained for that. They are not competent, and they have not been given the necessary tools to understand and to manage, to implement that budgeting system.
So what future do you see for the program budget or the result-oriented budget approach?
It still has a long way to go. It still has a long way to go, because even at the level of the National Assembly, when they were passing the 2013 budget, they examined 156 programs in 10 days. That's a performance that is really unrealistic, because they are talking about the budget program. They have to specify the programs. What are they? Nobody knows the programs. And not only that, it is not only meant for the civil servants, it is also meant for the taxpayers, because it is meant for the taxpayers to participate, to bring a critical approach to the budget, even to contribute to the enhancement of the performances. There's no information, there's lack of information. So you have opacity, you have bureaucracy. Okay, they move along with corruption.
And to you, all these actors are not involved in the implementation of the program.
That you, as a citizen, as a taxpayer, do you feel you are involved? But you are concerned, very much concerned. You should know what has been planned for, let's say, the new information technologies. Do you know what is planned? What is the program? Thirdly, and the last is the real reason why it is being implemented and why it was introduced. It was introduced and imposed by the Bretton Woods institutions, because most suppliers, that is multinationals, were complaining of bureaucracy, of not being paid, their bills not being paid on time. But that bill is meant at paying mainly those contractors who are coming from the various projects that have to be carried out or that are being carried out now.
So
that will avoid them to be always following up the papers every year. At least they will have, they can phase out the execution of the contracts and then follow up financially just every 3 years.
So to you, the program budget cannot be effectively implemented in the country unless they take into consideration some of the facts that you are raising?
No, the facts that I'm raising were defined by government itself. They were portraying the advantages of the system, but they only portrayed the advantages of the system. And those advantages are remaining just like mottos. They are mottos, no more than mottos.
And just to note that the National Assembly, the ongoing session is still taking place. The various members of parliament are still examining and to adopt the state budget for the year 2014 in the country. It is still underway, as I indicated, at the hemicycle in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. We thank you so much, Mr. Richard Martin Tondo, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. You are, of course, a financial expert and as well an economic expert. We thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
To our viewers, we thank you so much for having joined us. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Good evening to you once again.